Welcome back to the Weekly Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Owen, and today I have a very special guest. I couldn't make it a week without having a podcast with Newt here. Newt Weston, author of, remind me again the name of the Packers, but we'll have you plug all your stuff at the end. But what's the Packers draft guide you guys got out?
Yep, Cheesehead TV draft guide.
Yeah, we'll have him
do a strong word, contributor. Let's use that one. It's a little bit more correct.
But also, my fellow draft professor, you could have caught us this past draft cycle, me and Newt on Thursday nights. We'll see. We're hoping to run it back again next draft cycle, so stick around for that. But me and Newt got a good rapport on there, and we were excited. I wanted to put this on a draft professor episode, this specific topic, but we ran out of time and days. So now I decided, all right, we'll just throw it on here. I couldn't go another week without having this discussion, so I was happily putting together the boards here. Today we're going to be doing a battle of the big boards. The original plan was top 75. You had me change it to top 76.
And looking at, I'm not going to spoil anything. Looking at your number 76, I am so glad I did that. I am just ecstatic, actually.
I didn't even think about that. You're right. That would have been another one off my board that you didn't, or that I wouldn't have had, or you wouldn't have had, or I wouldn't have had. You had your board.
Yeah, no, that's going to be. I mean, we'll have to let the suspense build. But if you were an OG draft professor watching Owen and I in our first defensive interior, you're going to know this. That's fun. I literally just scrolled down and saw that, so that's cool.
Yeah. So on Thursdays when we were doing the draft professor, Newt and I, we would do weekly episodes covering D tackles and interior offensive line through the college football season. And then once the season wrapped up, we kind of switched over and we hit a bunch of other positions. So there's a ton of content out there over on the Draft Professor YouTube channel that has, live streams of us. We participate in a ton of different stuff, including prop bets. Was last week we did hot takes episode. We covered almost every position along the trench line. I think we covered all of those, right?
Yeah, I don't know if we did edges together, but I think we did them separately at least. Interior, and then we just did tackles 2 weeks ago. But yeah, we covered the hog mollies.
So, well, without any more stalling, we'll get into the actual meat of this episode here. So I went through and I put our top 76 into a board. Me and Newt are able to look at it right now. And I divided it as best I could. I know there's formulas and stuff you can use in Google Sheets and Excel to do this for you better, but I just eyeballed it, said, screw it, we're going to run with it. And this is the best I got out of it. So if there's any mistakes, you can blame me fully. But and if you see any while you're looking at this, don't be afraid to yell it out because I'll definitely take it. But we have three players exactly in the same spot on our boards. Unsurprisingly, 1 and 2 are the same with Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. I don't think there's anything we really need to harp on there. For me, I don't know. I did something different for my big board this year because Travis Hunter was such a unique player that typically I have just, I grade him at whatever position they grade out higher, I put them on my board as. But I wanted to grade him separately as a wide receiver and a corner. So that way because I do have some formulas on my who to watch / player positional rankings board that pulls it from my big board. And I wanted to have Travis on both the wide receiver and corner list. And to do so, I had to put him down weirdly on my big board. So I had to hide it. So he on my actual big board, he's listed as wide receiver / corner, but he actually shows up my big board 3 times. I just had to hide the little row there. Did not show him 3 separate times on it. So he's special. There's nothing really much you can say about that.
And I did something similar. Yours is a lot more refined than mine, but I give a position multiplier for all of my position groups based on more premium, not quarterback, obviously getting the highest. And I'm just kind of curious. I got to go in and look now. So the position multiplier that I usually give, and I have him listed as a cornerback, but obviously that's subject to change. So the position multiplier that I would give a quarterback, for instance, is 11.95. The position multiplier I'd give a cornerback is 11.05. Cornerback's still a higher or more premium position. My lowest position multiplier is what is it? A linebacker at 10.14. So kind of give you an idea of that range. It's not super wide. But for Travis Hunter, I had to break my mold with that, and I had to just kind of give him his own, and basically put him just a hair underneath a quarterback. So exact same thing there.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, I don't know if there's many people who have. I know some that have Abdul Carter as one and Travis Hunter two, but I feel like those are like your staple top two guys no matter what. So we're pretty chalked there. And I was surprised. I didn't think we were going to get any outside of like the top two, maybe three. But even then, my number three is kind of a curveball. We can get into that in a second. But we have Kenneth Grant at 16th overall. Fitting with us having covered D tackles during the year. We both had that listed, and we have different D tackles along the board, and that'll be one of the big changes we have looking forward. But that's one of them that we had exactly on, and that was the last of the ones we got exactly on there. So, I mean, have you seen all the stuff with kind of Grant about him like actively like it's going to be a favorite now that he's going to fall into the second round?
No, I haven't. I know when I just submitted my weekly huddle first round mock, and I think I had him going 31 to the Chiefs. So like it doesn't surprise me kind of given that, man, like if you told me the Packers walked away with him at 23, I'd be like, sweet, sign me up. I think this guy's a special talent. I think that the league as a whole is kind of down on him, on Nolan. And I know that Harmon's getting a ton of like top 20 buzz, like deservedly so. He's a little bit outside there for me, but I think that the league, at least it feels like, there's a lot of smoke and everything, but it feels like there's a pretty big gap between Harmon and then like the next crop of guys. So yeah, I've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of guys, like with Nolan and some of the other players that I have higher, I can rationalize like, okay, I'm higher on them because of this, or I'm higher on them because of this, or the league's lower on them because of this. Like Walter Nolan, there's character concerns. He was on like 5 or 6 different teams in like a 5-year span or something, like some crazy stat like that. There's a lot of guys that you can look at and be like, you can understand why they're falling. I can't find it with Kenneth Grant. Like I have my own, like obviously he's not my number one prospect. I have some drawbacks on him as a player, but I don't understand the non-round one hype, especially as my 16th overall player.
Yeah, I was a little. I mean, like I guess for me, I was a little disappointed in his overall athletic testing. I thought it was going to be a little bit higher than that. But, man, the tape this year spoke wonders to what he can do. You saw that athleticism show up with his explosiveness off the line, the strength he has, like functional play strength. So I'm totally in line with you. Obviously he's a top 20 player on both of our boards, and really for a good reason because he is just an absolute dog in the middle. Yeah, like I could see him going 7 to the Jets, 10 to the Bears, 11 to the 49ers. Like, there's teams in that top 10 that if they took him, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Yep. But the fact that he's like, there's a lot of mock drafts to have the Bills trading out of the first round and then landing him in the top of the second with their trade down. That'd be insane. Like, I would actually try a backflip in my living room. So those are our 3 full matches. I actually already caught a mistake. I saw that you caught it. I was going to say it. Yeah. I was like, man, Owen, already making mistakes.
Yeah, I know. You'd think the top guy, the number one guy who would have been on this category would have been the one I saw first, but I went from the bottom down, and now I did catch him, so I'm glad we did that. So when we're looking at matches, it's going to be hard. There's 76 guys. It can be ordered in any way, shape, or form. And like you have the position multiplier. I don't. And then I also grade them purely off tape. I think, if you correct me if I'm wrong, you factor in like injury and like other stuff like character concerns, red flags like that.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah. There's a couple of those intangibles that I factor in. Right.
So like grading style, it's different. You're not expecting to have like bang on. It's more kind of like the groupings. So for that scenario, I went through and looked at all of our guys who we have one-offs on. So like we're 1 spot off with those players, and those players would be Mason Graham. You have him at 3, I have him at 4. Ashton Genty, you have him at 4, I have him at 5. So that makes sense. I just have 1 player ahead of the 2 of those, which we can touch on in a second. We have Anthony Belton. You're at 56. Yeah. You have Anthony Belton at 56. I am at 57. You have Jack Besh at 61. I have him at 62. I'm actually finally higher on somebody with TJ Sanders at 64. You have him at 65. And then Emory Jones Jr., I have him at 71. You have him at 72. Dude, is there anything that I love?
I was going to say, I love that you have Emory Jones Jr. there. Like, this is a guy I went back and I didn't like him over summer at all. Like, I was super low on him. I know that he was getting like round 1 buzz as far as, his summer scouting and like beginning of the season were concerned. Like some people had him over Will Campbell going in, and then like it just seemed like everything fell out. And I went back and I watched him. I'm like, man, I like this guy a lot. I think there's like he's got legitimate opportunity to be an offensive tackle in the NFL. And if not, I think he could slide in and be a great guard. But I think he could truly be a right tackle in the NFL. And there's just so many times I look, he's like mocked in the 4th or 5th round. And I'm like, I would kill to get Emory Jones there. And you having him at 71 and me having him at 72, I think it validates some of those things that I saw and I really liked about him.
Yeah, like I said, I was watching a lot of other people covering the draft just to get a consensus, especially when I was doing my research for my guys video. And not a lot of people were talking like they talk about their top 10 or top 15 tackles or just offensive line in general, and they didn't really touch on him all that much. And if they did, he was like a day 3 player. And I can understand why, because I have my drawbacks. If you want to hear me go way super in depth, you can watch that video. He's my right tackle in that video. But like he has 34 and a 1/4 inch arms, so he has great length. He has smart hands. He's able to use his length. So tell me he has length and he knows how to use it. Like at tackle, that's what you need outside of like the mobility. And he has enough, like especially like for a right tackle. I'm not hating that. Where I get confused, it's kind of like the opposite of Jack Nelson for me, where I'm like, I see him as a tackle, and if you slide him into guard, I don't know I think that might exacerbate some of the things that I don't like too much about him. Like, I don't think he's like a great people mover. I don't think he has like this amazing get off and lateral movement. So like some of the stuff that I value more as an interior offensive lineman, he's not like hitting home runs if you move him inside with that. So I am more comfortable with him as a tackle than a guard. Like even like the NFL. So Daniel Jeremiah has him listed as a guard on the combine. But I get why people would say that, because he's more slow footed. He can overset when he's in space. But I just love the requisite length and hand usage there, and not being able to, and still having like he has enough athleticism to play at a right tackle spot in the NFL that I'm not super worried about it. And if I have to move him inside to make him succeed, if he does fail at right tackle, I'm sure I can make it work too. I just think projecting it is going to be more so a tackle than a guard.
Yeah, no, I get that. I like him a lot. I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I truly see him, succeeding in some capacity, especially, we're talking about someone that's like a 3rd round tackle right here. And I think we've talked about this class being, thin at the top, but I think, the offensive line in general, you're going to see a lot of players that go on day 2 in this draft that are starters within a year. And I think Emory Jones is kind of embodies that. Much like another guy that we have that's really close, Anthony Belton. I really liked him. He was one that I didn't watch it all over summer scouting. I didn't get a chance to like do a full in-depth until really like 3 weeks ago. I had kind of done a quick skim of him, got a chance to watch like 25 plays, but nothing serious. And looking at him about 3 weeks ago, I was just blown away. I thought this kid that, was from, it's not a smaller program, but it's not a big time program. He just did everything right. And, playing left tackle at BC, just everything about how he approached the game was just phenomenal. And I really, really liked all of those elements that he brought to that. So I like seeing that guy there. I didn't know if you want to touch on Belton anymore.
Yeah, so when I went into it, I knew him as like, just from the vagueness I've heard around him before I went into my watch, was basically like, he's big guy, he's going to be a people mover, like he's going to be a power style blocker at tackle.
Yep.
But what I was surprised with was how well I thought. I came into it thinking like, okay, I'm going to project him inside the guard. Like that's usually what a lot of this is like. There's guys who are, when you get to hear them described as these big power style blockers on the outside, it's because they're heavier and like probably got shorter with some better leverage. So you're going to want to maybe kick him inside the guard. But he's 6'6" and has a ton of length, and he's able to move. So I'm like, I was really surprised. And that's what kind of bumped him up for me, was that he was able to play on the outside. And I think he does have the athleticism requisite to play outside. So having a guy with that level of ability to like just move guys off the spot and clear guys out while still being a tackle is something special that like I think was going to be good for me when it comes to finding something to like about him specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to hit either of the other guys that are close, or do you want to go into some of the differences?
So I'll parlay this real quick. So we talked about Mason Grant, Ash, and Genty. It's my fault that we don't have 4 straight in a row at the same at the top. I just need to know why you hate Tyler Warren. I have him as number 3 overall player. You have him as 13.
Oh my god! I got a guy in my top 15, and I hate him. This is the Matthew Golden Emeka Egbuka conversation all over again. I basically think Tyler Warren is undraftable. That is what I'm saying here. No, I think for me, I like Warren, and everything he brings to the game is just incredible. He was so much fun to watch at Penn State this year, and he really blossomed into this like do-it-all guy. I think before, he was almost viewed as a traditional Y tight end, but that's because he really never got the opportunity to blossom in that system. It helps also that Drew Aller played extremely well this year and was able to complement his style of play. I think personally that there is a little bit of overexcitement for a do-it-all tight end after seeing Brock Bowers come out, that I think like Warren's stock is really, really, really heavily getting inflated. And I know that you don't view him that way because you do everything very, very rigidly. And I respect the hell out of that about like how you grade. It's purely on film. But I think like as a consensus media, that's where like a lot of people are getting really hyped about Warren. For me, I mean, to have a tight end in the top 15 is stellar because once again, I'm factoring in your positional value, and as much as a tight end is becoming more part of the game, they're still not as valuable as a true wide receiver, as a tackle, in my opinion, on the defense as a edge rusher, or even as a defensive interior and a cornerback. So there's all these guys that kind of like get that bump in my ranking because of what they bring to the table. And I try to reflect that off of contract value, and try to be realistic with that. Now, maybe Trey McBride has started to do it. The Laportas, the Brock Bowers, and soon to be Tyler Warrens of the world start to prove that wrong, and they change that gap, and my mindset changes. And I think the NFL is progressing to more tight end heavy sets. But like right now, as I currently view it, that it's because that tight end position isn't quite as premium of a position that knocks him down a little bit more in my rankings. Truth be told, I have on my scale of 1 to 10 before I pop the rankings in there, he's an 8.8, which if I look at him purely off that, like that is then like quote unquote my film grade for him. He comes in at number, I did lowest to highest. I want largest to smallest. He comes in at like number 5. So he comes in at number 5 for me once I pull apart. So once again, like I'm not pulling apart that position assignment that I give to him. So I think I see him a little bit more in line with where you do. So I think that kind of solves some of that discrepancy.
Yeah, for me, so I genuinely agree that your average wide receiver, like 1 or 2, is better than your average tight end 1. For me, like Brock Bowers, I think was my number 1 overall player, number 2 overall player last year in the class. And I have Warren, I think, either tied with or slightly below Bowers for grade-wise compared to. And when looking at guys like that, like a Bowers, like a Warren, I felt the same way about Kyle Pitts, but I've kind of learned from that a little bit because you still do need to be able to block in the NFL. If you have an elite tight end, I will take that over an elite like number 1 receiver, just because they add that different dimension to your offense, and they create mismatches. Because then you're having to, like, if you don't have Derwin James's or Nick, I guess potentially Nick Eamon-Worries on your team that can match up size and athletically to these guys, you're slapping on a linebacker who's less of an athlete. You're slapping on a safety who's smaller, a corner that's smaller. Like there's going to be, they create much more mismatches than like even the only receiver like that consistently did it for me from watching point was like Calvin Johnson, just because he had that size and speed combo. But you'll always have corners that can match up with wide receivers when they're more physically stronger to them or faster. It's easier to find a corner to match up with that level of wide receiver than it is to find a defensive player in general to match up with like that level of elite tight end, like a Travis Kelce, a George Kittle, what previously was Mark Andrews. Players like that, I feel like I'd rather have them over most like top end wide receiver ones. That's just my opinion, though.
I want to challenge that a little bit. So you said you like a Brock Bowers over a wide. Like if you had Jamar Chase, Brock Bowers, or Trey McBride, or whoever you want to put in there. I'm assuming Brock Bowers, but maybe I'm wrong. Jamar Chase, Brock Bowers, go to the Bills. Which one are you taking?
So I'll take that as in like we don't have. I'm not banking on Kincaid or anything like. I have zero pre-context of wide receivers and tight ends the Bills have. If I had to start over the skill position grouping with one guy or the other, I'd probably take Bowers. If I'm going to be honest with you, like that's just the way I view it. Because Bowers can stay on the field no matter what. Like even if it's in heavy personnel, and Chase does too because they have to respect it, obviously. And he's still going to get his. Like I said, it's not like one's clearly over the other. For me, in the football sense, I like the element that the tight end gives you in the run game. Like a guy like Bowers isn't the most dominant run blocker, but even then, he's still a bigger body that can sit inside on the in the box and give you an extra pair of hands there. That's more so than if I put Jamar Chase in there. And then if you have Bowers out there and it's like, fourth quarter, you need a bucket, you need someone to get open. Both those guys are reliable targets. I just can trust that I'm going to get the matchup I want more on Bowers in any situation than I am with Chase, because Chase is going to be on the number one corner and the other team is going to be on Chase. Yeah. Like, yes, I still think I'm taking Chase in that over most, if not all, corners in the NFL. But there's still some plays where it's like, okay, that corner got the better of him. Whereas, like, there's fourth and 3, Brock Bowers is out there. Who are you putting on him specifically? Yeah. Like what player are you picking to put on him in that spot? And I think I'm still getting the matchup benefit no matter who you put on him. So that's where like fair. Some linebackers you get some rare guys like that. And I think I'm blanking the guy's name from the 49ers.
Fred Warner.
Yeah, Fred Warner is special in that way. We've seen guys that can match up with those guys and be those kind of studs, and you see that now with like the hype around Nicky Memori to be able to be that chess piece to be like that's my answer to that question if Nicky Memori pans out. But for right now, like those guys are even rarer than top end players at either of those positions are. So that's kind of my philosophy of it. To circle back around Tyler Warren with that, he's a guy that I love everything he's developed so much as a receiver for me. And able to do that. And the thing is, like, Brock Bowers was a better receiver than he was, and a better, like, just like overall complete receiving prospect, run after catch, hands, everything like that. Not that Warren's bad. I think he's still elite at that stuff. But Bowers, I had questions about his size and how that's going to impact his blocking, whereas Warren, 6'6", 261 was what he was listed at Penn State this year. I didn't double-check the combine measurements, and he's still not a great blocker. That's where he's leaving points on the board for me, is as a blocker and just his consistent willingness to kick ass. Like if he had Jackson Hawes's like competitive toughness and blocking acumen, he'd be like the best prospect of all time, in my opinion. Like he's just he has stuff on the table that he's leaving that I think is fixable and you can add on to once he's in the NFL. And he has all the natural gifts, instincts in receiving, as well as pairing that with size and athleticism that like you can't really get anywhere else.
So I'll pile on to that a little bit just because I was listening to, like, it's become like my new favorite podcast, Pushing the Pile with Mike Renner and Kyle Long, who is hilarious in media. Like, Owen, I think you'd really like him a ton, just like being that offensive lineman guy that he is and like talking trenches. But he was talking about Tyler Warren and like he kind of closed with, he's like, he's a football player. Like, through and through, this guy is a football player, and he is going to do the things that, like, you want any, like, player on your team to do to kind of go above and beyond. It's not like he's out there, like, being an athlete. It's not like he's out there being this. Yes, he is athletic. Yes, he does have these gifts. He's got size. But at the end of the day, he's got that football mentality, which I think is going to take him a long way. So, to your point, like, I see Tyler Warren third on your board, and I don't like, double take that because I do see kind of where that comes from. I don't quite have him that high, but I do get it. Like I get what he can do in that like mismatch style offense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So for those who haven't checked out any of our stuff over at the Draft Professor or caught us on a good day, the joke around us, and the reason I want to do this episode so much was that we don't agree on much. we will constantly push back on each other and have differing opinions. Yep. And I think we're agreeing a little too much so far on this podcast. So let's change that right now. I'm debating, so I'm flipping back and forth. Do we want to start with who your highest guy is or my highest guy? Because my highest guy, the difference is larger, but I don't know if that means you should save it for second or if I should hit that one first.
Well, here you were just talking about Warren, so let's go to we'll go to my guy because I don't think we don't have to spend a ton of time on these guys. These are both going to be like household names at this point, but we can kind of talk about the difference between them. I think you listed it. Yeah, you listed it off there. So my guy was Donovan Ezeraku. I have him right now, number 29. No, number 29 on my board. He's been consistently getting mocked to the back half of the first round as of late. And for me, like, that's totally warranted. I see a guy that's a little bit smaller in his frame, but like he shoots out of a cannon. He brings everything that you want from a defensive lineman. And I'm a sucker for that. Like, there's another guy that I have on this list that I'm fairly confident I'm higher than Owen on, and Josiah Stewart. Maybe I'm not, but like Josiah Stewart's another example for me, like a guy that just plays way above his weight class. I think Donovan Ezeraku does that. He's not as athletic or like as limited in terms of his size, and he just has everything that I want to see in an edge rusher. So for me, looking at him, I absolutely love that. I've got him 29, I think 32 spots above you, where you have Ezeraku. Was it?
I am at 60. I am at 61. He's like the bottom of my second round grades.
So yeah, I mean, a full round difference, which is, I mean, that's a big difference, especially kind of like, and there might be some guys on here that like I have, like, I don't know where, I guess we'll get into this later, but like certain guys are that like we have way off the list, but like as far as like big names in here that made it, I guess what do you see with Ezeraku that puts him as a, end of the second versus end of the first?
Yeah, so there's stuff to like about him, right? I don't hate him. I didn't really get so I was hearing the first round mocks and stuff, but there's always guys that I have mocked or graded lower that end up going in the first. So I wasn't really factoring them that much, and then I just gave him my watch as I normally do, and I like him because he's smaller. He's 6'2", under 250. At least that's what he weighed in at the combine, and it's similar to you said to Josiah Stewart, where I knocked him for being a smaller guy, which, just to be clear, you do have Josiah Stewart 19 spots higher than me. You have him at 37. I have him at 56. So, still another second-round player for me, but just you're higher on him than I am. And so with Ezeraku, he's smaller, but he has good length. Like, his arm length is fine. For me, what held him back was I didn't see he's a good pass rusher. I think they used him weirdly at Boston College, where he was like that kind of, again, like similar to a Josiah Stewart or a Olufemi Oladejo, who was like one of my guys in this class. They used him similar, where they would have him like as an off-ball linebacker sometimes, and then also as an edge. And I'll keep bringing the comparison back to Stewart. Is both guys, I think, need to be, if they're not going to be like a 3-4 outside linebacker, they're going to have to be like a weak side, even front edge. Like, you don't want them taking on blocks and setting an edge on the play side of the play.
I don't want those guys playing in a 4-3 system. I want them as a 3-4 linebacker.
Yeah, and so exactly. So I think with him with Ezeraku, I felt like he didn't have that power element. Like, I didn't have Josiah Stewart graded above him because Stewart, I think, played with an element of power in his game, because he had, even though he's shorter arms, he had an element of leverage and ability to play through, and he had just like the most insane motor outside of Oladejo in this class. Let's also
talk about the 40% win rate that he posted, which was
stupid. That was insane. That was ridiculous.
I thought that was made up. But yeah, 40.2 true pass set win percentage, just absolutely insane from that guy.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, again, this is, I will support Josiah Stewart if he goes to a 3-4 system. I think he's a stud. I love you can, if you play with power but also some burst and then have a motor, I'll love you. No doubt. So that was kind of just my drawback with Ezeraku, was like his frame and his style of play, while good, is more scheme specific, positional specific. He has room to grow as a run defender in general, and with, like I said, with power elements, he's going to be undersized. He was similar to, I was low on Azeez Ojulari when he was coming out of Georgia.
Yeah,
very similar player to me. And I had him as a second round grade then. I have Izraku kind of graded similarly, and it's just because they had elements in the game that I was wanting more out of, and I didn't see the consistency in that drew them into that spot where it was, I didn't really see a guy who I can draft to any team and get a player out, like find a way to get this player to be as successful as I would to other teams.
I think that, there's a conversation to be had. We're both very close on like Jordan Birch. But he's another player that's kind of in that conversation where you talk about, like, I'd love to see Jordan Birch as a 4-eye. I think the guy would thrive as a 4-eye, as a 3-4 defensive end. I think you get after it. Yes, I think he could play a stand-up pass rusher in a 3-4 system. I don't like him as much as I like him as a defensive end. Yes, I could see him playing defensive end in a 4-3 even front. Hell, I could see him playing 3-tech in a 4-3 even front if you slid him in there on third down and just said get after it right from the center. But like someone like that, I think is another example of you get into these very scheme fit type players where you have maybe limitation. And I think slot receiver embodies that a little bit as well, where you ding a slot receiver because he can't quite do it all. So I definitely do understand that, where if you look at a guy like Izraku, he's not going to fit every scheme. If you do, you might have to squint a little bit, and then he becomes a little bit less valuable. So I totally get that, like kind of where you're coming at from that angle with Izraku.
Yeah. So again, still a good player. If he went back half of the first, I don't have the positional multiplier, but for me, it's a lot of vibes where it's like, what's the range if he went here, would I be mad? Or if he went here, do I think it's a steal? Like I give him and that's similar with me with quarterbacks. It's kind of my counter to like a hard positional multiplier, because sometimes I just haven't found one that really satisfies me yet to my rankings. So that was Newt's guy, was Donovan Izraku, 32 points ahead, 29 and 61 respectively for us. And then so now my guy, I have, and this was what pushed it up. We were talking on one of the Draft Professor streams, and I mentioned how I have, and I'll just recount it again: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 D tackles inside my top 16 now, which is insanity. But I think the top of his D tackle class is insane. Those players are Mason Graham at 4. Walton Nolan at 10. I'll skip the player we're about to talk about in a second, who's at 13, and then Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant at 15 and 16. So the player I have at 13 that I have 46 spots higher than Newt is Darius Alexander, the D tackle out of Toledo. For just to put out there what I see in him, why I have him as top 13. We mentioned earlier, it's pure tape grades, and that can get tricky with a guy who played at Toledo in the MAC. I personally don't think, like, the level of competition is definitely significantly lower overall when it comes to across the rosters. Now, that doesn't mean the top end talent on these rosters that are going to get drafted high couldn't be stars and studs on bigger schools. It's just that you have to put it on a curve that when they're dominating their level of competition, it's not as impressive as like a guy dominating at the Big Ten or SEC level. But I did like how Darius Alexander dominated down at the Senior Bowl. He performed really well when he got that bump in competition level on average. And for me, watching him, I had very few questions about his game. Obviously, there's stuff outside of the tape with his age. And I mean, that's really about it, to be honest with you, for what I can see why people would be lower on him. And that's understandable, and I have my own take on that. We don't have to get into that now, but unless that's something that you're factoring into why you have him as low as you do. But for me, he has long arms, heavy hands, gets out of his stance good. He's a good athlete. I think he's put together when it comes to technically. Like he's already got some good moves as a pass rusher and still has room to add there. So there's upside there. And I do think he's position versatile. I think his most natural position would be like a 3-tech or a 5-tech because he has that length. But even for teams that run like 1-tech as like, so knowing the Bills' scheme and system, they look for 1-tech D tackles because their whole front is penetration style. Like they're one of those teams that want their D tackles to get upfield, be disruptors, and then allow the linebackers to come in and clean up. So a lot of Bills fans are in on Derek Harmon as like a 1-tech for them if they're not going to go with the bigger 330-plus pound D tackle. Derek Carr and Darius Alexander were, by their teams, were 1 inch off from each other and the exact same weight listed on their roster pages. Both were 310. Alexander was 6'4", Harmon was 6'5". So if you think Derek Harmon could be one tech for like a team like the Bills or some other teams that run these more penetration front defenses, I think Darius Alexander could definitely be that. Now, I think he has a few more question marks with his core strength than Harmon does. He also was getting triple and quadruple teamed because he was just the guy on Toledo's defensive line. So yeah, I don't knock him too hard about being pushed around a little bit by those guys. And then when he went and played higher level competition like at Pitt, he dominated there too, like in their bowl games. So for me, he has a ton of traits and skills that I like that I think will translate regardless of what the level of competition on film was. Like if you can throw around, these offensive linemen are still like 310 plus in the MAC, and he's throwing them around. That's gonna, they're not technically as sound, but you can do that to those guys of that size, no matter what level. That's gonna translate. And I think he showed that he has other traits that I like that he can build on, as well as positional versatility along the defensive line.
So I take a look at him, and for me, I do. I factor his age into it. Like, he's going to be 25 years old in late September of his rookie year. Michael Williams is going to sign his second deal before he's 25 years old. Nick Skirton's going to sign his second deal before the time he's 25 years old. Sam Darnold, I think, might be like a year older than this guy, and he's like a season. Like, it's one of those things where, yes, I don't want to factor that in, and he's 25 years old. He's in the prime of his playing career. But man, when you talk about, you sign this guy to a 4-year contract and then it comes due and he's 29, looking to just turn about 30 after the next year, it does play a factor a little bit. However, I don't think that precludes you from drafting him. I don't think it precludes you from giving him a high spot on your draft board. The level of competition was big for me. I think he answered a lot of questions at the Senior Bowl. I think that was huge for him to really get him to a place where he can, say that he's able to be that guy regardless of the level of competition. I look at a guy last year. I'm trying to think, who was the guy last year that like really did that. The guard. It seems like every time there's an offensive lineman from North Dakota, like they do that every year in and year out. But if I look at Darius Alexander, I still think he has some holes in his game. I think, and I've got a couple notes written down, like he loses gap integrity, looking to go for like an outside speed rush, rather than, maintaining that and keeping the pocket collapsing on the quarterback. I think he, even at like the, Toledo, he can still get stymied by an offensive tackle if they get his hands on him. He really doesn't have, for me, that functional play strength to get over that. Fortunately for him, he's got great hands. They're very quick. He knows how to use them. He's great with his skill set, mostly because he's had time to study that for 7 years. But he knows how to like not even run into that typically. My question is, what happens when you step into the next level and that becomes a little bit of a different beast? Are those plans that you have, are those quick hands of yours, do they become a half step slower, and are you getting stymied a little bit more? I like him. I think he's definitely put himself in a position over this draft cycle to answer every question people have about him, and he's done that. Aside from obviously his age, I think you can honestly like not worry too much about the Toledo thing because of what he did during the Senior Bowl and because of what he did throughout the pre-draft process. But I still think that there are things about him where if I look at the guys I have on my list above him, and we've gone through our final defensive interior boards, I would take a Tyleik Williams over J.S. Alexander. Two very different players. Two very different, like both defensive tackles. One's going to give you a first and early down, just hog molly of a run stopper. And then Darius Alexander gives you a ton of pass rush upside with a pretty good run floor. But I would take, Alfred Collins still above him because I think he wreaks some havoc And then obviously the 4 guys that you mentioned, I still like those guys above him. And he's lower in the second round for me, that 59 spot. I think he's going to go before that. I think, to your point, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go before pick 40 because of all the things that you highlighted. So I ultimately think you'll probably be a little bit closer where he goes than I am, but it's just kind of like where I see with that.
That's fair. And I hope you're right. Because I don't disagree that there's drawback with the contract. That he probably will go second round. If he's there at 60 and the Bills take him, I'm going to be again another one. There's a lot of players in this draft that if the Bills end up with them wherever they're picking at, I'm excited. So I'm setting myself up for major disappointment when they draft James Pierce at 30. But for a lot of players like that, with Alexander especially, like I can definitely see him falling because teams are going to factor that more in than what I am. Again, I have a different perspective on it. I think with a guy who's turning 25 his rookie year, if you draft him in the first, right, you have 5 years of contract control with the 5th-year option. So he's going to be 30 by the time that's over. If you don't have a contract done, like imagine he's a stud. Like you go 5 years in the NFL, he's a stud, Pro Bowl level player. You're going to have to pay him big bucks, but he's turning 30. You also have 2 years of franchise tags you can use to control him if you really want to. But at the same time, I think once he gets to that age, I know players are playing older now, and if he's fully healthy, everything outside of that, if you have that 5 to 7 years of control in his contract, you could probably leverage the fact that he's an older player against him. Like he's going to want to get the money, sure. But you could tell him, like, hey, we're going to give you the money here. Like, you can either take the money we're giving you here, and it's probably going to be more than what a lot of teams are going to give you when you're 32 after we franchise tag you twice. Mm-hmm. It could get ugly. I'm not in these meeting rooms with these guys. But I can see the perspective. I just think I would maybe not be as scared off by it. Because even then, like, yeah, you want to maximize the amount of years you're getting from these picks. But for someone like Alexander, who's physically mature, because he's already 25, and he's going to be able to come in and have that higher floor immediately because he's already more physically mature, and some of these guys are coming in who are like 20 and 21. I think you're going to reap the benefits earlier on in that contract. And so, like, even if you have a guy you get 2 or 3 contracts out of, they may not get to the level this guy's at by the time they reach that, like the third year or even the start of that second contract.
I mean, it's a one in the hand versus 2 in the bush type thing when you talk about it that way. The other thing, and that, like, and I know I've heard this from others, like, you let them walk, you got a comp pick probably coming your way. And, that's like, that's another thing with that. So, conversations to be had around that. But, Darius Alexander, I love seeing him that high on your board. I think that, I mean, the dude did everything he could at Toledo this year to put himself in a great position for the draft.
Yeah. So we'll hit on my guy next. So the next category we're going to do is going to be players that are on one of our respective boards that just isn't on the other person's board in general, and the highest player on that. So we have a group of those. We'll touch on those afterwards, but this is going to be the highest player we have ranked that is not on the other person's board. Mine is lower than yours at pick 42 or at position 42 on my board. And we'll hit them quickly because we talked about offensive tackles a couple podcasts ago on the Draft Professor. Yep. And I know that you're also pretty high on this guy. He just barely missed off your board. We were talking about it pre-show here. So Ozzie Trapilo, the offensive tackle from Boston College, I had him as my left tackle in my Guys video. Check that out if you haven't already. For me, it was just he concerned me at first when I read his measurables because he was 6'8", 33-inch arms. Like, that's kind of, you're getting into T-Rex territory with tackles, and that gets a little weird. But he's able to play through it enough. Like, he does show up on occasion with his anchor, but I think he's not the best power guy either. But I think he has great movement. He generates enough power to be viable on double teams and the second level and kick out blocks and out in the boundary. So I think he does enough power-wise to exist in both scheme fits, both wide zone, and he can be like a serviceable tackle in power scheme. And I do think he has requisite footwork and technique overall to play on the outside and be a good player for you pretty early on. Like, my favorite pick for where Trapilo lands is to the Patriots at the top of the second round. Like Boston College stays in Massachusetts. They need tackle hub. Maybe they go with a pass rusher at 4. I've been dabbling with a Jalen Walker take at 4 with the Patriots, especially if Abdul Carter is gone. So I think that's my favorite landing spot because I think he has a good enough floor right away with the amount of technique and movement skills he has. I don't know if the ceiling's all there, but for me, that's where I have him. And I know you view him not too further down, but yeah, that was my highest player that didn't appear on your board that appeared on mine.
So I think here's the crazy part about this, and it's not where Trapilo is because obviously you're a lot higher in yes, Trapilo's not far off my board, but you're still 38 spots higher on Trapilo than I am. I've got an Emory Jones and I've got an Anthony Belton that we already talked about above Trapilo, just because I think that those guys both bring a little bit more of what I like to see from the position. With Trapilo, I don't love him as a run blocker. I think that he tends to dip his head. He doesn't sustain blocks. He's more of he's trying to hit and knock guys out of the way. When he gets to the second level, he's kind of like more of a pinball to me. Where I'd really like to see him with his big frame, he's a massive man. You mentioned the arms aren't quite as long as you'd like at that 6'8". But I'd like to see him utilize that length to sustain blocks a little bit more. I think that Emory Jones brings that mean streak a little bit, and I know that that's something I covet. I will look for a guy that is just kind of more of an asshole in the middle, and I don't think it's how I view guys. I don't think Trapilo is that much of an asshole. I think he's really smart. I think he's great. He's amazing in pass protection, and I think that's something that as the league continues to grow and evolve, this guy, I think is going to find his home as a starter somewhere because he's so good in pass pro. And I think that in the run game, they'll find ways to either, maybe they can coach a little bit more of that technique in him. And if not, I think they'll find ways to, help him, whether it's a tight end chipping, whether it's a double team from a guard, whatever. I think that they're going to make that work. Trapilo's so good in pass protection where I don't think that you can ignore that. It's just he doesn't have that mentality to me, which I know pushes him down. I know that's why Emory Jones better than him, because I think Emory Jones is he's a mauler in the trenches. I think Anthony Belton is the same way as well, where he's got a really good anchor. He uses his size and explosiveness really well. And I can kind of keep going up the list. I think the thing that looking at the list right now that is wild to me is you have Ozzie Trapilo at 42. You have who then is the complete polar opposite for me, who's Kelvin Banks at 38. At 40. I'm sorry. You have Kelvin Banks at 40, where Kelvin Banks is my OT1. So the difference between those two guys is 2 spots in your big board. And for me, I've got Kelvin Banks OT1 and Ozzie Trapilo OT8. So it's kind of like a meeting in the middle of those two, which I find actually and I know that I'm a little bit more of an anomaly on Kelvin Banks for a lot of those things that were said. But if I look at those guys, I see a pretty big discrepancy between them because of what they can both do. I think Banks has a huge upside, where I think Trapilo he's not necessarily what you see is what you get, but you know what you're getting with pass pro. You hope you have a higher earnings in run protection, but I think that there's some things that he kind of leaves to be desired. And I know that Banks isn't one of the highlighted guys, but looking where we are with those guys, that's still a pretty big discrepancy, especially a guy that's in my top 10 that you have all the way down there at 40. Did you want to comment on him real quick?
Yeah, I was actually while you were talking, I was checking out what my list was, and I was like, oh my god, I have Kelvin Banks here, and I knew you were higher on him. It was him and Nick Scorden that I was coming into this. I knew you had a lot higher than I had them previously. Scorden, I still have his first round guy. He's 23 overall. It's not that big of a depth. It's 17 picks. But
as long as he's a first round guy.
Yeah. Banks for me is actually he's not the greatest difference because I have we just talked about with Darius Alexander, I have 46 points different there. But with Banks, he has 33, which is still higher than who I found to be, or what I put down as your farthest drop off. So yours is 32 with Izaraku. Banks is my second highest, and that's still 33, discrepancy-wise. So for me, Banks, I get confused whether or not I think he's going to be a tackle or a guard. I think he has the power. I like him as a guard because he has the power, and he showed movement at tackle that was like, I was fine with. I'm okay with it, but I didn't love it. But if he was at guard, I would love it. Like, it was like he showed a lot of stuff that I love at guard, but the fact that he's plays at tackle and he's been consistently mocked as a tackle, and I graded him as a tackle just because I think he has length and he's going to play right tackle in the NFL. I could see him failing inside and being a better player inside than he's out, but at the same time, I felt like he's still going to be a tackle, at least initially, so I wanted to grade him as such. For me, I really like Banks. Not as much as you do, obviously. Undraftable, but but for me, it was just a lot of stuff that I was like, okay, he has a ceiling. He definitely has a ceiling more so than Trapilo. Trapilo for me has great floor with his pass protection, and I think he does enough in the run game. Like, I can work with it. He's not an absolute liability. There's some players I've seen that are liabilities in the run game, and he's not that. I think he's functional. Whereas Banks knocks dudes out and I think has more to work with. It's just going to be like, which player is going to be better year one for me? I think I would probably go Trapilo for me personally. But Banks, I can see even as soon as year two, putting it together and starting to figure out, he then takes a step up. Like I said, it's a conversation of ceiling versus floor between the two of those guys for me.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about your 34th overall player. Running back Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. For reference, so you said Trapilo was pick 80 for you, where he was picked 42 for me. Johnson is picked 34 for you, whereas on my board, out of 146 players I've graded, he's player number. I just lost him. I had him for a second. I should know his grade. 121. 147 I have? Okay. Yeah. So
I was saying he was player 100. I was saying he was player 147 out of your 146.
Oh yeah. He's player for me. He's player for me 121. The closest we got to our actually our joke being undraftable. No, I have him as a 4/5. That's a difference of quick math 80. Is that 87, 86, something like that? From 34 to 80, 87. From 34
it's almost
to
3 rounds. It's almost 3 rounds different. I have him as basically start of the second round versus, you said 4 or 5.
Yeah. So go ahead and sell me on Caleb Johnson. I'll tell you what I think about him afterwards, but give me the pitch on why he's your 34th overall player.
Caleb Johnson, to me, the guy looks like, and he reminds me of shades of Jonathan Taylor, where you look at him, you see him running, you see these broad shoulders, you see this strong player, 6'1", 224. He's dense. He's built like a brick shit house, where he is going to be the hardest guy to take down on the field because of the way that he carries his weight. He's not the fastest guy. He ran a 4.57. I'm not hanging my hat on that, but he runs with just such an aggressive mentality. He brings enough athleticism to the game. And he's got such good vision. And, people are going to say he was running behind an Iowa offensive line. Yes, cool, whatever. He was running behind an Iowa offensive line that we're talking about barely one guy going this year with Connor Colby, who everyone happens to be shitting on lately. So you take that into perspective, he's not running behind, the Bama offensive line. He's not running behind OSU. He's running behind a good offensive line because it's Big Ten football, and that's what Big Ten football does. But he still has to make things happen for himself, and he does. He's got amazing vision. He doesn't have, that long speed to him, but he has such firm and quick cuts. He is true make you miss mentality. He had a 27.5 missed forced tackle percentage or missed tackle force percentage, which basically every fourth time that someone's going to try to tackle, almost every third, he's going to make that happen, where it's just insane to think about his ability to do that, to avoid in a one-on-one situation. The way that he pairs that with power, where he can absolutely run through arm tackles like it's no one's business is insane to me. And, Omarion Hampton gets mocked extremely high, deservedly so. I have Omarion Hampton higher on my board, but what's talked about with him constantly is like he's a weight room warrior. Like he is just this guy that runs through and he's a freak in terms of what he can do with a downhill mentality. And you see it and it's true. But Caleb Johnson really brings a lot of that where he's able to be a north and south runner, but has good vision, knows how to make the cuts that are necessary, and has just this body that is extremely hard to bring down. So Caleb Johnson, to me, I think that he shows what it's like to be a guy that's going to be a reliable, hey, I'm going to get you 4 yards a play. I've got a body that's built that can last through that second contract, which I don't think every running back in this draft has. And just everything about the way he carries himself in the game, he's not niche. He's not, you put him in this system, he'll succeed. You put him here, he'll succeed. You can't have him here for third downs because he is a liability in this. I think Caleb Johnson brings every part of his game in a really, really well-balanced way. So I love him. He's number 34 on my board.
Yeah, I think it's the style of back that I'm just not in love with because I also have Omarion Hampton down. I just did the math. I think he had 28 spots lower than you. He's like player 55 for me, whereas you have him as 27. And then, like I said, we had a big difference between me and you with Caleb Johnson not being on my board at all, being down at 121. Right. So for me, I agree with a lot of what you said. I love his vision. I do think he has really good vision. It shows up in like his patience, ability to. There was one play in specific that I really cemented it for me. It was a wide zone, allowing him to make hard cuts, which he does do well, and play. I think he's a great one cut back, kind of like a Kyle Manon guy for me in this class as well, where he's able to plant and get upfield and then get plus yardage. And the fact that he was able to, the whole line was moving, and I'm watching it and rewatching it. I'm trying to find the hole that he hits. It's not there when he has the ball in his hands and he plants. It shows up afterwards. He anticipates the whole opening and then hits it and gets a positive gain for it. And I'm like, well, it's super impressive, especially for a back who's 6'1", 224, who I'm sure if he just ran into the ass of his guard, he would still get 3 yards. He has power, he has contact balance, and he has vision. I really like all that stuff. And you were saying how some people are excusing it because of the Iowa offensive line. Me and you watched 2 or 3 players in the offensive line. 2 of them went back, or one of them went back that we watched, and one is coming out. Nothing special. I like Connor Colby, sure enough, as a 5th round guy, but I'm not over the moon about him. And the offensive line, especially for Big Ten football, wasn't nearly the top of the top for them. And where I push back with a guy like a Caleb Johnson, and the only reason why Omarion Hampton is as high as he is for me is because I do value that juice if they're going to be more of that power style runner. So I was looking at Caleb Johnson, I was kind of thinking back to Derrick Henry. That's the style of play he really goes for. There's plays where his offensive line fails and he reverses field and he's able to get to the outside boundary by doing that. But I don't really think he has the juice to get upfield. He struggles to really finish plays. He doesn't really have next gear. He hits second gear and again just kind of stays there. He can get hawked pretty easily by some defenders, especially safeties and corners. So I don't think that's great, and I knocked him on that a little bit. But I also like a guy who's on my board towards the bottom in Cam Scadaboo also has that same issue where he's not going to finish plays in the NFL. He ran a 4.6 something. He's slow too. For me, where it comes to is with Caleb Johnson, I just didn't see the fluidity in his hips or the short area quickness and explosiveness in not the one cuts, but the small moves, the elusiveness. You brought up his missed tackle force percentage. A lot of that, I think, comes from his contact balance and being able to absorb hits, recover, and keep pushing forward. And he gets 2 or 3 of those on a play, and it's super impressive, and it's a really nice rep. So I have him as a 4th round back because I think he does that stuff well. He's a power back who can shed tacklers, and he has good vision. He's not going to be a guy who struggles to get in the field because he can't hit the holes right. He's going to hit the holes, and he has a specific skill set that every team is going to value. There's going to be a player like that on every single NFL team, so he's going to have a job. It's just that he has limitations when it comes to elusiveness, top end speed, just short area quickness, and then I also think he's just a non-factor as a third down back. Like he's big enough that in pass blocking, he was getting in the way and did fine in some reps, and in other reps, you could see like he kind of like panics and he tries to do like he doesn't really have technique and just throws his shoulder into guys where he like tries to submarine dudes and can whiff at times. So I felt like a guy, especially of his size, should be a bit better of a pass blocker in my eyes. And then receiving wise, I watched every single one of his targets on the season because he only had like 20 or 30 something, and it's all just like either a screen or he's going out in like the flat and the little bubble there just as the check down and getting it, and he doesn't look supernatural catching it and converting it to a runner. Like he has to like really look it in before turning upfield, and he just doesn't really offer a lot. So I think for me, he's a 4th round guy or 5th round guy because you draft him, he's going to be a starting caliber running back, as in he's going to get touches in the NFL, but he's going to have to be part of a committee. He's going to be the power back in that. He's going to need someone who complements him with home run hitting speed and someone who complements him. Maybe it's the same player, maybe it's another one that's going to be more of the third down player for them. So because of that, I think his role and versatility is going to limit him for how high I would draft him personally. And like Omari Hampton, the only reason he's saved is because he has some of that top end athleticism to go along with that.
What, where in your running back rankings is Caleb Johnson? Of the
11 I've watched, he is running back number 9. Okay. So ahead of him is Genty, Travion Henderson's my RB2, then Hampton, and then we get to our third round grades, which is Quinshon Judkins, Cam Scadaboo, Kyle Monangai. And then ahead of Johnson are players that I think they're all very similar. Like I think they're all pretty much like the same grade on my big board. I just have some of these guys have more juice to them or have some other things like so Donovan Edwards from Michigan, Ollie Gordon, and then Caleb Johnson. Donovan
Edwards and Ollie Gordon are ahead of Caleb Johnson. This is blasphemy. This is blasphemy. What do we? Oh my god! You think?
So with Donovan Edwards specifically, I came into thinking like I was going to love this guy, and especially after watching kick Washington's ass in the national championship game, and I was really underwhelmed. I felt like he was not like he was another guy who wasn't a super athlete, but he was a pile mover. Similar, like I said again, similar as I valued Caleb Johnson. They're very similar players to me. You could tell me you took Caleb Johnson over Donovan Edwards, and I'm totally happy with that. I'd be fine with it. Same thing with Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon offers something in the way of a little more elusiveness for me, especially in the open field. Another guy struggles with deep speed, not really a receiving back. They're all the same archetype of back for me. Caleb Johnson probably has a little bit more upside when it comes to some of the stuff outside, especially with his vision outside of what they do. But I think for me, Caleb Johnson, one of the things I was most disappointed with my watch with him was I liked him as a power back, sure, enough, but there was just a surprisingly lack of, for me personally, him being like that big pile pusher, or there were times where he got stuffed. I feel like he got stuffed a little more often than I would really want to see him, especially for a guy who's 6'1", 224, rocked up like that. I wanted to see him to take on linebackers one-on-one and win those battles more often than he doesn't. Kind of like how we talk about with contested catch receivers. If you can make that 50-50 play into a 60-40, then you're going to get boosted up. If you're a running back who's 6'1", 224, I want you to make those plays one-on-one with linebackers, NFL linebackers, and turn those into favorable plays for us, especially when the field gets tightened, and I'm going to rely on you to be our power back. So those other two guys, I think, did that a little bit better. Not so much Ollie Gordon. I think Donovan Edwards did that a little bit better for me personally. And Ollie Gordon has offered some other stuff athletically that I think was a little bit higher than what I liked from Caleb Johnson. So those, again, all three of those guys, very similar players to me. So here's interchange them, but yeah.
Here's the funny part about that. Caleb Johnson, 34 on my board. Ollie Gordon, I have like 140. So I think you and I for Ollie Gordon are fairly close. You said like he's like 120 for you.
Yeah. So with there's a bunch of guys ahead of him that I haven't watched. So like again, it's out of 146. Right. So yeah,
but like somewhere there. So Donovan Edwards on my board, 234.
Really?
Just like no part of him do I want as a runner. So I think that's actually like something that, that's as a conversation probably for another day. We're focusing more on like top 75, and we have them both outside of there. But like I'm not a Donovan Edwards guy, and it's mostly a vision thing for me. And I really don't see the short area quickness. He seems to get lost and doesn't have the ability to make it happen once he finds the hole, which always inevitably seems a little bit late. But that's, like I said, that is a way post 75 watch. I just kind of found that funny that like I have those three guys spread so far apart.
Let me clarify this. Donovan Edwards was like the first or second running back I watched, and like player like 20 I watched in this class. So I do have to update his grade. Looking at what I gave him, I liked his vision and patience. So maybe we're off there, and I'll have to recheck that. But he's like, I think he's a worse athlete. That was what I really sucked about that watch, was he was just a terrible athlete. Edwards was. So I think okay. I do have to go back and check him again. Obviously, it'll be something that'll take like 20 minutes for me, because running backs are a relatively quick to watch anyway, and I've already watched him, so I'm just really more checking my work. But yeah, so we will maybe have to have a Donovan Edwards conversation on a different day.
That's fair. Where do you want to go from here?
So we're gonna run through. I'm just gonna read off. We'll start with your side of it. So the players that you have on your board that I don't have on at all, and I'll have you go and say pick one player that surprises you the most out of that group, and I'll pick one that you would be surprised that I don't have on my board, and I'll pick one that I'm surprised is in your top 75. And then we'll do the same with me, where I'll read off my 11 players I have that you don't have, and then
I like this.
Yeah. So of the players that you have on your board that I don't in my top 76 is Luke Kandra, the guard out of Cincinnati, Braden Swinson, the edge out of LSU, Jack Sawyer, edge out of Ohio State, Jalen Knoll, wide receiver out of Iowa State, Elijah Arroyo, tight end out of Miami, Dylan Sampson, the running back out of Tennessee, Jalen Royals, the wide receiver out of Utah State, Kevin Winston Jr., the safety out of Penn State, and Torrey Horton, the wide receiver out of Colorado State, the man that made this list the top 76 instead of the top 75.
Had to get Torrey Horton in there. Could not leave that man out.
So pick one player from that list to say why that is most surprising to you that isn't on my list.
I think Braden Swinson. For me, it's got to be. He was the second highest one listed. We've had the Kandra conversation, and it was something we talked about a little bit earlier on. I know I've always been a little bit higher on him, so like I don't find that one surprising. I'm higher on Luke Kandra than just about everyone else, but Braden Swinson's a little bit surprising. I would think that he would be at least cracking the top 76 for you. So I'm kind of curious to hear like what do you see with Braden Swinson? Where do you have him on your board?
So Braden Swinson is a fourth round grade for me. So the top 76 ends with quick math, 11 picks left in third round grades that I have left that's not on this board. So it ends 11 picks short of my third round grades. And then you get into the fourths, and I have Braden Swinson at pick 100. He's number 100 overall for me, like even 100, which is still like there's a grouping of players in there that's like knocking on the door of third round grades, and he's in that like cluster of 20 players.
You talk about Donovan Edwards, who you have right there.
Yes, yeah. Which again, need to check the work on that. So for me, and I'm not surprised you picked Braden Swinson, because I've said it to you a bunch of times that you can win my heart if you have long arms and play with heavy hands. And he has 35-inch arms and has his combination of length to power in his hands specifically is second only to like Micah Williams in his draft class. Yeah. I think he's like that elite with that level of play. And I watched him because he had that super crazy like pass rush win rate. He was up there with Josiah Stewart. They were like both had like 40% plus. I do think, and I think a lot of that, he's not a bad pass rusher. I think he's actively a good one. Like he's more refined as a pass rusher with counters. He has active hands, and he has different like rush plans to complement what he does best as an edge rusher. So I think if you draft him, he could definitely at the worst be a designated pass rusher for you and be like your third or fourth edge. It's where I kind of view him as. The reason I didn't love him, first off, I don't know what the hell LSU was doing with his utilization. Another player that was like kicked to stack linebacker on occasion to play against the run. Like, why are you doing this? You have a guy who can throw around human beings like freaking teddy bears, and you have him off the line of scrimmage. It drove me insane. But I didn't love his explosiveness on the edge, right? So he's a 250-pound edge rusher. And I didn't love his get off or his bend. So like he doesn't really have that speed element that I really covet. Like he still wins as a pass rusher in every other way outside of that for me. So I can't hate him too much on that element of it, but at the same time, I view all that stuff kind of separately because I want to make sure I want to know you have that in your bag. If I need to deploy you in that way, can I get that? Can I add that element to your pass rush package? I don't really know if he has that for me specifically. I think so, and also for me, he has the build and the makeup of a guy who should dominate as like a point of attack run defender on the edge. And he's not bad at it. It just left me wanting more a lot of times, where I felt like he could be a Micah Williams level dominant player against the run if he has the skill set to do that, but he just wasn't, and it was driving me insane watching it. So for me, it was the lack of any real bend in his game for me. His explosiveness wasn't up to snuff when it comes to like what I want in my edge rushers, and just really leaving a lot of run defending on the plate, a lot of meat on the bone there that would want him to have back.
I like that. So I've got two of those points. The run defense is huge, and I totally agree with you there. That he's got to be able, if he wants to be a 3-down edge rusher in the NFL, he has to be better about setting an edge. I actually saw his bend, I think, a little bit better than you. I thought his ability, to me, he's a much better straight line athlete than he is like, quick change of direction. And I think that plays into that explosive factor that you're talking about. But I think he's got the ability to get upfield and turn and make the arc. At least I see it a little bit better than you. But I do understand what you're saying about his explosiveness, because I think that that's something that right now he doesn't have that ability to really exploit from an offensive tackle. So like, I mean, even from like just you take the run defense part of it, I totally understand that. And it's something where obviously if you're going to be, worthy of a top 50 selection, you might not have it now, but you got to be able to gain it at some point. Like we want you as a 3-down player in the NFL. You're not just going to be a DPR with that high of a pick.
Yeah, I think with the bend there, the way you describe it is kind of the way I talk about it with Landon Jackson from Arkansas. Whereas I saw for a guy of his size has a lot more bend than most people give him credit for. Like it's not great, but like for factoring in what he is and his length, and like, I was like, okay, that's impressive for his size. And I don't think he can't bend at all. I think for Swinson, a lot of it comes from he's more of a leaner where he'll attack an outside shoulder, half a man, and compress it as opposed to be able to loop around and bend at the hip and at the ankle to get really corner and get upfield, which is kind of like what you were saying with the change of direction stuff. I think he's much better when he can get hands on and compress the edge and get a little bit of bend by leaning on a guy than just being like in space bender. But yeah, that's just really why it held me back. I know I'm lower consensus wise. I think he's a consensus like second round player. So I definitely am lower on him, but I'm confident in what I see. And if he was a better run defender, I'd be all on board with you. I'd be in that boat right alongside you. It was more so the disappointment for me with that section of it.
No, that's fair.
For my pick of player, I just want to hear your thoughts on that's in this that I don't have. I'm bouncing between two of them, which is the two I'm bouncing between is Jack Sawyer and Jalen Noel. I'll go with Jack Sawyer because I don't think we've had the Jack Sawyer conversation yet. Me and you haven't, at least. I had Jack Sawyer like a lot higher. I had him as like a second round grade up until I rewatched him before I talked about edges on the Draft Professor, and I ended up dropping down like a 4. Like another guy with Donovan Edwards knocking on the third round grade there. And
I love Jack Sawyer. He goes so Jack Sawyer he's got good height to him, but his length is just not what you want to see. It shows up on tape. It showed up at the measurables from the combine, 31 and 3/4 inch arms. I like his build though. I think that he's pretty dense, 260 at 6'4". I think that he pairs that with, he's not a great athlete by any means. And that's the reason why he didn't test. And I know exactly that. He might say he had a tweaked hamstring. That's, whatever. He's not an elite athlete. Like, he's not what a lot of these guys are coming out. But he's athletic enough where he pairs that with his understanding as an edge rusher and his knowledge of the game, that I think he just knows how to elevate himself to a point where, number one, he is a amazing run defender, like such a high floor as a run defender, just kind of like the exact opposite that we talk about with Braden Swinson, where you get this guy in your team right away and he knows how to set an edge. He's very smart about when to bite, when to sit, when to kind of lay off, has a good understanding and good vision in the backfield on tracking the ball. And I think he does like all of those small intangible things well, where his mental processing of the game, gives him the ability to overcome some of those physical shortcomings. I think he's a better tackler than his statistics said. I think a lot of things with him was he would, over pursue or get a little bit further in the backfield, get hands on and just not be able to finish the play because he was kind of in an ill-equipped situation to do so. I think he's a better tackler than that would lead to be. And even so, with that, he's extremely disruptive. He is a technician of the game. He understands how to play that, and partly comes from his knowledge of like the limitations that he has to overcome. But once again, he doesn't have ideal length. He is not like a standout necessarily in one particular category, but I think like he has a high enough football IQ, absolutely a high enough drive. Like I implore anyone that is a fan of the game, if you haven't seen the strip sack scoop and score in the Texas game in the college football playoffs, watch that. Like, that's football. Like that is what you want to see when you talk about a locker room guy. That's that right there. And people are going to say, he's a great college player. It doesn't translate. I think that there's a lot to his game that sets him at enough of a position where it can elevate him to a point where, as a second round player, if I'm getting a really, really high floor edge rush run defender and someone that, has the mental understanding of how to develop that pass rush plan, I take that guy on my team every time.
Yeah. So when I originally graded him, like I said, I was pretty high on him. And everyone was really at the beginning of the season because he was having such a good start to it. I eventually went back and rewatched it with the context of, and the reason I had him graded so highly was because I thought he did play in the games I watched. I thought he played with better length than what people were giving him credit for. And then I went and rewatched it now with the understanding of like what his measurables actually were. And I watched a couple of the other games where he's playing against more top flight tackles, including the Texas game, or again against Josh Connerly, some of those guys. And what made me drop him was just because he played. I loved that he had his power rush element to his game, like the ability to get in the guy's chest and back him down and then win through that way. Now, the fact that he has such short arms makes me think that that's not going to translate nearly as well to the NFL as it was working in college, especially not against like Western Michigan and Akron, we played this year, where he was just throwing dudes into the quarterback's lap. So I think his one thing that I felt like he was pretty dominant with as a pass rusher might not translate to the NFL to the way it was working in the college football game. And what also concerns me is the tackling thing that you were talking about, where I do think he's a smart guy and he puts himself in position to make tackles. What concerns me is also stuff that you touched on, that the fact that he missed so many tackles, and I chalked a lot of them up to the fact that he just wasn't lengthy enough or wasn't good enough athlete to complete those plays, where he got hands on and he was in position to make a tackle. And if he had an inch or two extra on his wingspan or if he had a little bit better when it came to explosiveness to uncoil or change direction or like flexibility to adjust mid-tackle attempt and secure it, then that would make sense. But since he's lacking that stuff, and then that was what was contributing to him missing those tackles from what I saw, that was making me concerned. Like, okay, so he's a limited athlete, he's limited lengthwise. That's going to limit his pass rush that he's winning with in college, as well as it's limiting already with him in college his tackling and ability to be a finisher on the run defender. I think he's going to be a high-effort player, smart, will be a great rotational edge for you, which is why I have as a fourth-round guy. Like, he's going to be a guy who gets drafted and plays snaps his rookie year. He's going to be a contributor. It's just that what is his – I don't think his ceiling is that high, and what I previously thought was a higher floor, I'm coming down on significantly more so. So, like, for example, I thought when I watched him, what I originally saw from him was what I now attribute to, like, Josiah Stewart with his power rushes. That's what I was seeing. Okay. But I feel like Josiah Stewart wins a lot other ways outside of just doing that I think Sawyer just isn't bringing for me personally.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
All right. I could talk to you for forever. So we have one last topic though, and we'll get out of here after that. We're going to do the same exercise where I'm going to read through the 10 players, not including Ozzie Trapilo, that I have on my board that you don't, and I'll pick one player that I'm surprised, or that I'm surprised that you don't have, that I have on my board, and you'll pick one player that you are surprised is on my board from this list of names I'm about to throw at you. So, Trey Harris, wide receiver, Ole Miss. Isaiah Bond, wide receiver, Texas. Again, reminder, this is film grades. I probably wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole at this point, but that's my defense on that one. Seth McLaughlin, center out of Ohio State. Kyle Williams, wide receiver out of Washington State. Jared Ivey, the edge out of Ole Miss. Jackson Dart, the quarterback out of Ole Miss. J.J. Roberts, the safety out of Marshall. Charles Grant, the tackle out of William & Mary. Cam Scadaboo, the running back out of Arizona State. And Efton Kism, the third, the wide receiver out of Eastern Washington. The player that, just because I want to talk about him more, not so much I'm not surprised on your board, because like I could bring up like Seth McLaughlin. I feel like I'm really high on him just because of his floor. But for me, I just want to talk about J.J. Roberts because was he on your radar at all to watch?
No, he was not. I mean, talk about him, please, because he was gonna. I mean, he was gonna be the guy I asked about. I have not watched J.J. Roberts at all. Yeah,
so here I will give you the sales pitch right now. And then while you think about one of the other players, another one I was debating was Jackson Dart, but that's a whole quarterback conversation that would take a whole other podcast for this class. But so basically, J.J. Roberts is a safety out of Marshall. He's 5'11", 192. No one bothered to tell him he's 5'11", 192. He plays with his hair on fire. He lays the wood. He has a 4.4 40. I found out about him because, well, first off, Mel Kiper talked about him, but I missed that. Kyle Krabs of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, when they covered their safety group on their episode, touched on him as like one of his like day 3 or late day 2 players. And I
literally plays with his hair on fire. Like he's got the dyed fro with like the orange. Dude, this is like his haircut is sweet. Like, to that point, I love it. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I pulled a picture from, I think, from high school, and it's badass. I love it.
Yeah, he is a dude when it comes to like just attacking the football. And he's 5'11", 192, runs a 4.4. He's gonna be like a free safety type player. He works best like running over the top and covering large ground and rangy player on the top of your defense. I think he could be a split field safety. But I think he also could be that like cover 3 single high guy. And he runs the lanes against, like, if you ask him to play the run defense closer to the line of scrimmage, you're not going to get as good of results. But when he's like 20 yards off the line of scrimmage and he can just sprint at wide receiver screens or outside running zones where they're not even bothering to block him, so he just has to read the right lane and then shoot that gap. He can shoot those guys from 10 yards out and then absolutely stick dudes. He flies to the football. Has insane like leaping ability. Like his vertical is like shows up on tape. It's insanity. He only had 1 interception this season, but he had like 4. Like I think PFF attributes dropped interceptions as a stat, and he had 4 dropped interceptions. A lot of them were like the plays where he was like kind of lurking underneath the downfield wide receiver, and the quarterback thought he had enough space to get it over him, and he just jumps in like 10 feet in the fucking sky and knocks it down. Like, it's insane. Like, I was in love watching this guy. I have him with a 3rd round grade. He's just a stud athlete, plays well bigger than his size. Where I have concerns is when he gets close to the line of scrimmage, not just as a run defender, because he's not good at taking on blocks, shedding, like even against wide receivers and then attacking. That's where his size shows up. And also when he's in like lower zones, he kind of loses himself in the mess a little bit too much. I like him a lot more when he's on the back end of the defense. He has everything in front of him, and if stuff gets to him in that far back, it's like 1 or 2 routes he can stay over top of. He just flies around, a super athlete, and isn't afraid to stick dudes, and he's such a fun watch. You have to check him out if you have any time left to watch guys before the draft. That he is one of my favorite players.
I love that. Like, I mean, just kind of looking at it. So, full transparency, if you were to ask me, like, what are the groups I feel the least confident in, I think safety would probably top that list. I'd say safety and tight end. For me personally, just like with the guys that I watched, like the trenches, watched a ton of, cornerbacks and wide receivers and running backs. But like, yeah, safeties, I feel like I truthfully feel like I let them down. And if there's a safety out there, I apologize right now. But so no, I would really like to, I want to check this guy out because I just pulled up his PFF stats just because like I've got access to all those, like 91.2 defensive grade last year, 89.9 coverage grade. Like, I mean, just like nuts when you take a look at that in terms of like some of the other elements that really come into play. So no, I mean, for me, like looking at that, it's like, oh shit, this guy's, bringing something to the table that, not everyone is. So I'm definitely going to check him out before Thursday comes along.
Now, I do have to give you a warning. If you watch his game against Ohio State, it's atrocious. He has like a single-digit run defense. He's the guy that misses a tackle on that Igbukah screen that he takes for 70 yards. He misses a tackle on Trey Henderson.
That's fine because it's Igbukah. Like, Igbukah would do that to just about anyone.
It's like the one game where he's flying to the ball and he misses his tackles, and then they make him pay for it because no one else is around to make the tackle. And it exemplifies a lot of the stuff I don't like about him, especially as a run defender closer to the line of scrimmage, because they had him in a slot a decent bit in that game as well, and that was kind of getting him in the mess a little too much. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that game is atrocious. Watch it to get the full scope of like what he lacks. But that just a reminder that game's kind of an outlier. Okay.
No, I'm gonna keep that in mind just because, like I said, I mean, if you're this high on, damn, he's a hell of an athlete. 9.67 Raz.
Oh yeah,
that's solid right there.
The only thing holding him back is his size because he's poor or bad, like with a red size.
Yeah, but like I mean, you get safeties that safety is almost the most versatile position, maybe aside from linebacker, where like you get guys that come in all shapes and sizes. Like you get a guy that's 5'11" or a guy that's 6'4". It's like, they're great at the position, but they do so many different things.
Right.
So no, I like that's totally fair. So let me ask you. You kind of answered the Isaiah Bond question. I get the McLaughlin thing. We've talked about Trey Harris. I'm not super surprised on Kyle Williams. I'm not like that far off on Kyle Williams either. I think the one I want to pick is, and like also like Afton Chisholm. If anyone here hasn't seen that, like that's the second player you do right after Deontay Thornton. In your My Guys, like check out Owen's My Guys for Offense. Like goes into full depth on Afton Chisholm. Really, really cool there. Let's talk about Jared Ivey. And so I'll just give like my 2 cents on him really quick, and then I'll let you talk about him. So he's right now, he's edge 21 for me. And this edge class is stupid deep. So he's still like player 148 for me. Just because this edge class is just so incredibly thick. But I look at him and he's a guy, he's got a good speed to power profile. I like how he approaches that. He's got some alignment versatility where I think he could go anywhere from like a 4-eye all the way out to a true 7-tech pass rusher off the defensive end. And he's got a just phenomenal length. He's almost 6'6". He's got 33.5-inch arms, and like he just approaches that. He's just not an athlete. And at that position, it scares me to see a guy that is, really, really poor an athlete. He had like a RAS of 2. And I knew like looking at him, he doesn't have the bend and the flexibility. He doesn't have the short area quickness. And it's like, all right, man, can you bring something that like, okay, it's a coaching aspect where like they can kind of bring these things to you. And from a position that has become like so inclined to athletes that are able to just be freaks on the end. And he's not one. These things that I'm like, okay, the potential that he has with his build, with his frame, with his length, I'm like, okay, I like this. And then it felt like it took like whatever that like potential from where he is to where he could be, and it just compressed it way, way down for me. So I think that's why I sunk a lot on Jared Ivey. I probably had him as a fringe top 100 player. And then just kind of like looking at that, it's like, I can't get on board when a lot of my feelings for you were more projection based.
Yeah. So for me, the final line in his write-up, I was just checking over the write-up again while you were talking. And my final line is he is a high floor, low ceiling player. Like he's definitely not there when it comes to an athlete. Yeah, he had that really piss poor RAS score. And everything I've written about him in here with his athleticism, it's like fine, serviceable at best. Like it's not. I'm not giving any glowing reviews when it comes to being an athlete. For me, where he succeeds so him and Braden Swinson are similar to me when it comes to how they win on the outside. Long arms, heavy hands. Like another guy, like he's like that's like my big 3 in this class. If you had to make me pick, would be Michael Williams, Jared Ivey, and Braden Swinson in one order. Michael Williams probably easy number 1, but then those other 2 are interchangeable for me. And so he wins through that way. I think he's about the same thing when it comes to like run defending as Swinson, where like you want to see it a little bit more. But I think I can excuse it even a little bit more with him because of how not good of an athlete. I'm not going to say bad, but how not good of an athlete he is. I do think if you need someone to clog up, like get hands on, be like clog up that tackle and not let them kick him out or anything like that, I think he'll be serviceable when it comes to that. But when it comes to stack shedding, consistently making big splash plays and run, I'm not expecting that a lot from him. For me, what I like about Ivy is that he even though he doesn't have the speed or bend, he shows off surprisingly good core strength for a guy who is like a true edge and is like 274. So like when he kicks inside to D tackle, I know a lot of people like to bring up that archetype of like, oh, he can kick inside and rush from a 3-tech while being an edge. Like there's not that many. Like they say that for a lot of players. How many of them do you actually know about in the NFL that do that like on a consistent basis?
Right.
As a fan of a team who loves to draft those guys specifically, like Rousseau, Epinesa, Casey Tuhill they signed last year, like that's their archetype of player. They never do that in all reality. Like sometimes it'll be like a handful of snaps every couple games. So I'm not the biggest fan of that projection, but if there's going to be a guy in this class that does fit that for me, it's going to be Ivy, because even though he's not a phenomenal athlete on the edge, I do think he has quick enough feet and get off when he's in that D tackle to beat some more slower footed guards. So if you don't think he's going to win a lot as a pass rusher on the edge, I think he could win a bit more if kicking inside. And he has the strong hands. He has the long arms on the edge to set edges and impact the run in a somewhat of a way other than like being like a gap shooting, get in the backfield and make big plays. But he's foundational. Like he'll be fine there. Keep your linebackers clean. especially in like those combo block situations. So I don't think he's like a stud at any one thing. I think he does a lot of stuff really well-roundedly. Like he defends the run good, not great run defender. He's got great long arms, great length, and great hand power. He's good, not great as a pass rusher, especially like on the outside, speed, the power. He's got that. And when it comes to the inside, that's where you can unlock a little bit more of that athleticism and a little more of that kick, because he did weigh in at 274. So like it's not like it's a stretch to not say he can't be the inside player. Like Tonka Hemingway is 10 pounds heavier, and he's a true D tackle. So I do think he can be like a D tackle style player as a pass rusher, and then that'll make him a little bit better when it comes to that element of it. And that also increases his versatility. He played like as a stand-up 2-point stand guy at Ole Miss, and then also reduced inside, played nose tackle on some plays. Like he played all along the line, didn't look out of place any one specific spot. Is he a phenomenal player? No, but if you draft him, are you getting a solid like edge 3 or 4? Sure. I think he's more a safer bet than some of the other guys I have lower than him.
That's fair. No, I like that.
But yeah. All right. So that was our battle of the big boards, our top 76s. A lot of differences. We are commonly known when our podcast together that we have a ton of differences. To be honest with you, not as many as I thought in like the middle picks. From like pick 16 where we have Grant, or we're going to go from pick 13 where I have Alexander, all the way down to like pick 47 where you have Kandra. Yeah. We only have 2 players that are off each other's boards, and then Izaraku's the only one in that range that like is different, and it's just because I have him a bit lower. So, right. And once you get towards like the bottom half of the top 75, there's a lot more variance there. It's understandable to be different. So I was surprised by how similar we were in general. Now there was Kelvin Banks of the world and stuff like that we disagreed on, but for us, it's a step in the right direction.
Well, so fun fact, your player 76, who I'm so glad that we got on there. We are so incredibly close. Like I feel like he was my guy all draft season, and I feel like he's our guy. Like we can share together. So Riley Mills makes the board for Owen at player 76. I think I had him probably as high as like mid 50s. And the ACL did not help anything at all. He's a little bit of an older player for me. So that kind of like bumps him down a little bit. We were talking about him pre college football playoffs. So that absolutely factored a little bit for me. But man, we're only 4 spots off on him. I got him at 73. You got him at 76, or so 3 spots. Yeah. So you love to see it.
I think for me with him, I would want to see him as like a 5 tech somewhere. Like I want him to be a 5 tech D tackle, and he'll be a steal because he's going to go in day 3 just because he has a torn ACL. He's older, and he didn't really like. No one's really talking about him. Like I'm surprised because he was like Notre Dame's like best defensive player. Xavier Watts is good, but like in that run up to where they made it to the national championship before he got hurt, he was like the difference maker, like the X factor for that defense and the defensive line, at the very least, defensive line. And that included guys like Howard Cross, who we both like. So it was surprising to me that now that he's kind of fallen off talking wise, but yeah, but who hasn't fallen off talking wise? We haven't. We've been going for about an hour 40 here. And all of it is good. I'm probably, what I'm going to do? I'll probably post this all as one tomorrow as I planned on it, but this is going to be right for cutting out short 10-minute video segments where we're talking about a single player, short YouTube shorts. We're going to hammer this podcast until Thursday in my free time. So this was content gold. Newt, before we sign off here, do you want to just give all your little, you're selling your pitch point to who you are, what you've been doing in the draft space?
Yeah, no, Newt Weston, you can check me mostly on Twitter at NFL_Draft_Weston. That's where I posted my final big board today, my top 200. I'll probably put the condensed top 100 up there tomorrow. I've got my final predictive mock that's going to be going up tomorrow. That is what I submitted to the Huddle report. Really honored to get an opportunity to do that. You're submitted to the Huddle report, right?
Yeah, I got to submit mine tomorrow.
Okay, yeah. I run also zerotechdraft.com. That's where you can find both of those publications, as well as a handful of articles I wrote throughout the year. Didn't write a ton as much this year, mostly because I was, as Owen said, on Thursday nights with Owen on the Draft Professor podcast. That for us has sunset. Hopefully there's a sunrise next draft cycle because I had a ton of fun with that, mostly talking ball with Owen. I'm really excited. Hopefully we're back. I think we're talking D tackles and edge rushers, which I know for us, like both of us have really, really liked that. Last little bit, I was a contributing member for Cheesehead TV Draft Guide. Oh, look at this guy. He was ready for it. I don't even have to bring my hard copy. Cheesehead TV Draft Guide. If you are looking for a draft guide, this is an amazing draft guide. Yes, it is geared to Packers. Yes, I know that there are going to be probably a fair amount of Bills fans tuning to this. But there are player write-ups. There's more player write-ups in there than you're going to find on PFF, than you're going to find on Dane Brugler's. There's 25 or 20 player write-ups for each position group, minus like H-back, kicker and punter and returner. Everyone has at least 20 player write-ups. You're going to find a ton of content in there that is Packers specific. If you are a fan, it is 100% worth the money for that. A couple of guys that me and Owen have worked with and interacted with, kind of draft professor chat that are great guys that know ball that have gotten an opportunity to write in there as well. I got an opportunity, as we were talking about, to write up the defensive tackles for there. So if you are looking for a draft guide, please consider checking out Cheesehead TV Draft Guide. Wonderful one with a ton of players in it. But that's me. That's my content. Owen is Johnny on the spot with just wonderful pull up. I really appreciate that, Owen.
Of course, I had it up because I wanted to plug that a little bit because I've even though it's a Packers only thing, it's still just write-ups on players. Like it's going to be through a Packers light. Sure, you're gonna see a little bit more of, well, the Packers need this, so this is what this player gives them. But you're still going to get the bare basics of this is what this player does good, this is what this player does bad, this is how he fits into this style of defense. And if you're just a football fan in general and want to know how these players would perform in a certain style, certain scheme, or a certain style, which is also translatable to other teams, it's pure gold. And like you have so many write-ups in there. Like you said, it's a group project between a couple of the different draft professors and on top of some other people outside of that. And I respect your takes on players and how you do your process and your process of just watching guys in general and talking about them. So I can assume, knowing you and knowing everyone else who's contributed for it, it's high quality content in there. So yeah, I wanted to plug that, especially having it's for you. What is it 9:51 over there in Wisconsin?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so I dragged you probably past your bedtime, so I wanted to make sure that you got some good plug out of it.
I appreciate it.
Of course. And so for me, over here at the Weekly Huddle, where this is going to be posted, like I said, this podcast, we're recording this on Monday night. Today, the video of all my guys video went up, both offense and defense. You get 22 different players covered on there, some that you're not going to hear a lot about, some we talked about today. There are bookmarks and stuff. I know it's an hour plus long video, but there's bookmarks if you want to jump to any specific position or side of the ball to make it easier on you guys. As well, this is going to go up on Tuesday. I'm definitely going to cut up in my free time some snippets from this pod and post them as individual videos because we had some good conversations that we just let fly. So those are good individual contents, especially itself. And further this week, so for the Huddle Report, where I'm going to be putting a predictive mock in there, that same predictive mock I'm putting on the Huddle Report is going to be coming out on my channel on Thursday. So you can see what my picks are there on the day of the draft. I have a predictive mock coming out Thursday. On Wednesday, I have a 2-round what I would do mock, just so I can get my final opinions out there of what the kind of players I would pick where and how I view some of these teams and their needs heading into the draft, not just being predictive. And
you got any spoilers for that? Have you done it yet, or?
I'm slowly working through it. For me, I think one of the spoilers is going to be the Jaguars go an offensive skill position at 5. I dropped one earlier with Jalen Walker at 4 to the Patriots.
Okay,
that one I'm pretty high on that one for
you mentioned that during this. You mentioned that during this podcast with them maybe circling back and grabbing a guy like Trapio.
Yeah, and then so I don't know what I'm gonna do yet with the back half of it. That's kind of where I've been tinkering around with trades. I don't see a lot of trades happening in that top half of it. So, or what I personally wouldn't do that because there's only like 20-ish players I have like first round grades on that like even then some of them I'm not super confident in. And if I'm in that top 20, I'm not trading back to then miss on one of those guys. So it's that range of picks from the Steelers on that I'm kind of toying with what I want to put who where. And the only other announcement I have is that so I did a live stream watch along with watching Ty Robinson, the D tackle out of Nebraska, watching his film.
Really good. Check it out. Seriously, wonderful watch along.
So unfortunately, you can't check it out anymore. I got a notification today saying
it happened.
The Big Ten blocked it on copyright grounds. However, just to make it so that way maybe I can make a little bit of coin off of this, I have reopened my Patreon. It's the only membership right now, and this is I don't know what I'm going to do with it eventually, but it's a $1 only Patreon right now, and that's the only membership really. And this is where I'll be able to post videos. Specifically, if I can find the content I just posted of the, I should have looked at this before I pulled it up on the stream. But believe me, it's there. It's somewhere on there. If I don't know how. Oh, here it is. So the post is the upload of the video file from YouTube of that video. So there's not going to be. You can still go and see them there. It's $1 a month. And you can watch along with that. So I don't think the live streams are in danger right now, so I can run those. But following their conclusion, if you want to rewatch the playback, then you're gonna have to go over there, and I have to figure out how to make that work out specifically. But that's what's in the works right now. But anyway, yeah, that is it for us. I had a great time. Like I said, this was great content. I'm gonna miss our Thursdays. I know Newt, you're taking a bit of a hiatus. I appreciate it too because I definitely I'm gonna ease off the draft stuff, especially after this weekend. I'm gonna cover a lot of stuff post draft, but film watching and grinding it out is probably gonna be a little bit of vacation. So Yeah, so we will eventually link up again for content, whether that's on the Draft Professors come next draft cycle or sometime before that, who knows. But for right now, that was awesome. If this is the last time for a while, it was a great one to send it off on. For me, for Newt, thank you guys for listening to the podcast, and you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.